I'm Emma, 20. For 5 years, I've been sending over $200,000 to support my brother while he failed time and time again to find himself. I thought that's what a good sister does, until my dad smirked at Mom's 60th birthday party. You're not real family, but that wasn't even the worst part. What happened next shattered everything I thought I knew about family. And this time, I won't stay silent. Before I share the details of my story, let me know where you're watching from, and thank you for being here. I grew up in Scottsdale, in a house that looked like it belonged on a Christmas card. Dad ran his HVAC business. Mom taught high school English. And my brothers, Jake and Kevin, fit perfectly into their roles. Jake's the hero, a paramedic. Kevin's the baby, charming, funny, always adored. And me? The middle kid who never quite figured out where I belonged. When I was 12, I won the state science fair with an AI project. My parents said, "That's nice, honey." That same week, 8-year-old Kevin scored a soccer goal, and the whole family went out to dinner. He got a car for his 16th birthday. When I turned 16 6 months later, I got a lecture about responsibility and how I should save up for my own car since I was so good with money. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself that grades and achievements were more important than popularity or parental attention. I threw myself into school, maintained a 4.0 GPA, got into Arizona State University on academic scholarships, and studied computer science. But here's the thing about family dynamics. They follow you everywhere. Even when I was excelling in college, even when I landed internships at major tech companies, I was still desperate for my parents' approval. I was still competing with Kevin's effortless charm and Jake's heroic career for scraps of attention. The first time my parents called me for money, I was a junior at ASU. I'd been working as a teaching assistant and had saved about $4,000 from my part-time campus job. Dad's HVAC business had hit a rough patch. Some client didn't pay a big invoice, and they were short on the house payment. "Emma, sweetheart," Dad said over the phone. "I hate to ask, but we're in a tight spot. Kevin's still figuring out his path, and Jake has his own place now. You're the only one who might be able to help." I wired them the money the same day, all of it. Every penny I'd saved working 20 hours a week while maintaining my GPA. You know what happened? They praised Kevin for getting a part-time job at a sporting goods store 2 weeks later, even though he quit after a month. They threw Jake a party when he got promoted to senior paramedic. And me? I got a thank you text and a promise to pay me back that never materialized. But for the first time in my life, I felt valuable to them. I felt needed. So when the next crisis came, Kevin's car broke down and needed expensive repairs, I stepped up again, and again, and again. After college, I landed a software engineer job in Phoenix. $85,000 a year at 22 felt like winning the lottery. I thought, finally. Now I'll earn the kind of respect Kevin never had to work for. I rented a tiny 1-bedroom in Tempe, filled it with used furniture, lived like a broke student. 3 months in, I was already sending home what a $5,900 a month. Not for bills or emergencies, for Kevin. Kevin was finding himself. Personal training? I paid for the $3,000 certification. Real estate? I covered the licensing classes. Lawn care? I bought the mower, the trailer, the equipment. 6 months later, each idea was not his passion. And me? I was eating ramen and working 60-hour weeks to keep it all afloat. My parents just smiled. Kevin's still young, still exploring. Thank God Emma can support him. At 25, I got promoted. Salary jumped to $120,000. And with it, the family's expectations. Suddenly, I was paying for vacations I couldn't take, home renovations on a house I didn't live in, even Kevin's car deductible after he crashed. Dating? Forget it. I remember telling a guy, Marcus, I couldn't go out because I just wired money to cover Kevin's credit card debt. He looked at me and said, "Emma, they're using you. You're living like a broke student at 26 to fund your brother's Peter Pan syndrome." I broke up with him, told myself he didn't understand family. The breaking point came at Kevin's 25th birthday, his new dream, a coffee shop. Not just any coffee shop, an artisanal, craft, prime location kind of deal. Price tag, $80,000. I had $25,000 saved for a down payment on my first house. My parents called a family meeting. Mom said, "Emma's always been so generous." Like it was a cute personality quirk. Jake, finally speaking up, said, "Maybe Kevin should get a loan. Dad shook his head. Banks don't understand vision like family does. Emma's investment is an investment in our future. I wrote the check. Every cent I had. The coffee shop lasted 4 months before Kevin quit. Said he wanted to be a fitness influencer instead. After the coffee shop disaster, something changed in me. Maybe it was turning 27 and realizing I had no savings, no house, and no life outside of funding Kevin's dreams. Maybe it was the growing resentment when I saw Kevin posting on Instagram about his entrepreneur journey while I was eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner to afford his next venture. I started setting small boundaries. When Kevin asked for money to buy professional camera equipment for his fitness influencer career, I said I needed to think about it. When my parents called about helping with their vacation to Hawaii, a vacation they'd planned without asking if I wanted to come, I said my budget was tight. You know what happened? I became the difficult one, the selfish one who had changed since getting her fancy job. Emma's become so focused on money, I overheard Mom telling her sister on the phone. She used to be so generous, but now she questions every little thing. Little thing? I'd calculated it one sleepless night. And I'd given my family over $200,000 in 5 years. $200,000 that could have been my house down payment, my emergency fund, my retirement savings. The final straw came when Kevin, now 26, announced his latest business venture. A food truck specializing in gourmet grilled cheese. The startup cost? $60,000. And guess who he expected to fund it? Emma, Kevin said during a family dinner. This is it. This is my calling. I can feel it. I looked around the table, at my parents nodding encouragingly, at Jake carefully studying his plate to avoid eye contact, at Kevin's hopeful face, and something inside me snapped. No, I said. The word hung in the air like I'd announced I was joining a cult. No, Dad repeated, like he'd never heard the word before. I can't keep funding Kevin's experiments with my future, I said. I'm almost 28. I want to buy a house, start a family, build my own life. Kevin's face crumpled. But Emma, this is different. This is my real passion. Your real passion was personal training, and real estate, and the coffee shop, and fitness influencing. I can't keep sacrificing my life for your hobbies. The explosion was immediate. Dad accused me of abandoning my family. Mom cried and said I was being cruel to Kevin. Kevin himself looked at me like I'd slapped him. I can't believe you're being this selfish, he said. Family is supposed to support each other. I've supported you for 5 years, I shot back. When do I get support? The dinner ended with me leaving and not speaking to any of them for 3 months. 3 months of silence that felt like freedom. I probably would have stayed away longer, but Mom's 60th birthday was coming up. Jake called me at work, the first contact I'd had with anyone in the family since the food truck fight. Emma, look, I know everyone's been weird, he said, but it's Mom's 60th. She's really hurt that you haven't been around. Guilt is a powerful thing. Despite everything, these were the people who raised me. Mom had driven me to every science fair, helped me with college applications, been proud when I got my first job. Maybe I had been selfish. Maybe family was about more than money. I decided to go home for the birthday dinner. I even offered to help with the party planning, though I made it clear I wouldn't be funding any elaborate celebrations. Just a nice dinner at Mom's favorite restaurant. Driving up to the house I grew up in, I felt that familiar mix of anxiety and hope. The house looked the same. Well-maintained, suburban, perfect. Kevin's car was in the driveway, the same Honda I'd helped repair multiple times over the years. When I knocked on the door, Mom answered with tears in her eyes. Emma, oh sweetheart, I've missed you so much. The hug felt genuine, warm. For a moment, I thought maybe we could fix this. Maybe the time apart had given everyone perspective. Then Dad appeared behind her. Well, he said, his tone cold. Look who decided to grace us with her presence. Tom, Mom warned quietly. What? She walks out on her family over money and then shows up expecting everything to be fine? I took a deep breath. I didn't walk out over money, Dad. I walked out because I needed boundaries. Boundaries, he repeated, like it was a dirty word. That's rich. Jake emerged from the kitchen, giving me an awkward wave. Hey, Emma. And then Kevin appeared, and the temperature in the room dropped another 10 degrees. Oh, he said flatly. You're here. No hug, no smile. Just cold acknowledgement. I came for Mom's birthday, I said carefully. I thought we could maybe talk. Kevin shrugged. Not much to talk about. You made your priorities pretty clear. The next few hours were some of the most uncomfortable of my life. We went to Mom's favorite restaurant, Romano's, the Italian place where we'd celebrated every major family milestone. I offered to pay for dinner, a peace offering, but Dad cut me off. We can handle our own expenses, thank you very much, he said loudly enough for other diners to notice. Throughout dinner, Kevin barely acknowledged my existence. When I tried to ask about his life, his job, anything, he gave one-word answers. Jake tried to play peacemaker, bringing up neutral topics like sports and weather, but the tension was suffocating. The worst part was how they talked around me. Mom mentioned that Kevin had finally found steady work as a gym manager, like this was some major accomplishment for a 26-year-old. Dad praised Jake's recent commendation from the fire department. When anyone asked about my work, the conversation quickly shifted. I was a ghost at my own mother's birthday dinner. During dessert, while Dad was in the bathroom and Mom was talking to Jake about his girlfriend, Kevin finally looked directly at me. You know, Emma, I hope you're happy with your choice. What choice? Choosing money over family. I hope your bank account keeps you warm at night. Before I could respond, he'd turned back to his phone, scrolling through Instagram like I wasn't there. When we got back to the house, I pulled Mom aside. Can we talk privately? She looked nervous but nodded, leading me to the back patio where we used to sit when I was a kid. Mom, what happened to us? I know I made mistakes, but this feels like more than just anger about money. She sighed, looking older than her 60 years. Emma, sweetheart, you have to understand. Kevin was really hurt. He felt abandoned. Abandoned? I supported him financially for 5 years. But then you just cut him off. No warning, no discussion. He was counting on your help with the food truck. He was counting on me to fund his 6th failed business venture, I corrected. When was I supposed to start living my own life? Mom looked uncomfortable. Kevin's always been sensitive. You know that. He looks up to you so much, and when you withdrew your support, it felt like rejection. What about what I need? What about my feelings? You're successful, Emma. You have a good job, a nice apartment. Kevin's still trying to find his way. I stared at her. He's 26, Mom. When I was his age, I was already supporting the entire family. That was your choice. Was it? Or was it just expected because I was the one with money? Before she could answer, Kevin appeared on the patio. Are you two talking about me? His tone was accusing, defensive. We're just trying to work things out, Mom said quickly. There's nothing to work out, Kevin said, staring at me. Emma made her choice. She chose her precious money over her family. That's not what happened, I started, but he cut me off. Isn't it? The second I needed real help, you bailed. All those years of pretending to care about my dreams, and the moment it got expensive, you were done. Kevin, I gave you over $200,000 in 5 years. The number hung in the air. Mom gasped. Kevin's face went pale. That's not... You can't put a price on family support, he stammered. Can I? Because apparently that's exactly what you've been doing. That night, I stayed in a hotel instead of my childhood bedroom. I needed space to think, to process what was happening. The family I remembered, dysfunctional but loving, seemed to have been replaced by strangers who saw me as either a walking ATM or a traitor. I called Jake the next morning. Of all of them, he'd seemed the most reasonable. Emma, hey, look, last night was rough. Jake, can you help me understand something? When did I become the villain in this family? He was quiet for a long moment. You're not the villain, Emma, but you have to understand. Your money has been important. More important than maybe any of us realized. What do you mean? I mean Kevin's not the only one who was depending on your help. Mom and Dad have been struggling more than they let on. Dad's business has been slow, and with Kevin living at home, my blood went cold. Are you telling me they've been using my money to pay their bills too? Not directly, but when you cover Kevin's expenses, it frees up their money for other things. When you stopped helping him, they had to pick up the slack, and it's been hard. I felt sick. So the cold shoulder isn't just about Kevin feeling abandoned. It's about money. Emma, you know that's not, is it? Be honest with me, Jake. Another long pause. Partly, yeah. I hung up and spent the rest of the morning walking around downtown Phoenix, trying to make sense of my family's behavior. By afternoon, I'd made a decision. I was going back to their house to have an honest conversation about money, expectations, and what kind of relationship we could realistically have going forward. I knocked on the front door around 3 p.m. Dad answered, looking surprised to see me. "Emma, I thought you'd gone back to Tempe. I wanted to talk to everyone together, clear the air." He looked reluctant, but stepped aside to let me in. Mom was in the kitchen, and Kevin was on the couch playing video games. "Family meeting," Dad announced without enthusiasm. We gathered in the living room, the same room where I'd announced I wouldn't fund Kevin's food truck. The same room where we'd had countless awkward conversations over the years. "I want to understand something," I began. "Jake told me that my financial support has been more important to this family than I realized. I want to know exactly how important." Mom and Dad exchanged glances. Kevin paused his game but didn't look up. "Emma, we've never asked you for money directly," Mom said carefully. "But you've benefited from it indirectly?" Silence. "How much of your household budget was dependent on me covering Kevin's expenses?" I pressed. "That's not a fair question," Dad said defensively. "Why not? If my money has been propping up this family, I think I have a right to know." Kevin finally looked up from his game. "God, Emma, everything is about money with you now. Can't you just be a sister instead of an accountant?" "A sister? Kevin, when's the last time you asked about my life, my job, my relationships? When's the last time any of you offered to help me with anything?" "You don't need help," Kevin exploded. "You make 6 figures. You have everything figured out." "Do I? Because from where I'm sitting, I've spent the last 5 years sacrificing my own future to fund your extended adolescence. And when I finally asked for some boundaries, you all treated me like I committed a crime." "You abandoned your family," Kevin shot back. "I stopped being a bank. There's a difference." "Enough." Dad's voice cut through our argument. "Both of you, enough." He stood up, pacing to the window. "Emma, you want honesty. Fine. Here's honesty. Yes, we've been counting on your help. Yes, it's been important to keeping this family afloat. And yes, when you suddenly cut us off, it hurt more than just Kevin's feelings. Finally, truth. But," he continued, turning back to face me, "that doesn't give you the right to come in here acting like you're better than us because you make more money. I never said I was better than anyone. Didn't you? Walking out on family dinner because we couldn't meet your new boundaries? Acting like helping your brother is some kind of burden? It became a burden when it was expected instead of appreciated." "Expected," Mom's voice was sharp. "Emma, we never expected anything from you. Are you kidding me right now? Dad literally called a family meeting to pressure me into funding Kevin's coffee shop." "We asked for your opinion," Dad said. "You asked for my money." The argument was escalating, voices rising, old resentments pouring out. Kevin jumped up from the couch. "You know what, Emma? I'm glad you finally showed your true colors. I'm glad I know what you really think of me." "What I think of you, Kevin, I think you're a grown man who's never had to take responsibility for anything because everyone in this family enables you." "Enables me?" His face was red now, furious. "I'm trying to build a career. I'm trying to find my passion. You're trying to avoid growing up. And everyone here lets you because it's easier than admitting you might actually have to struggle like the rest of us." "Emma!" Mom's voice was horrified. "That's enough." But Kevin wasn't done. "You want to know what I think, Emma? I think you're jealous." "Jealous? Jealous that Mom and Dad actually love me. Jealous that I don't have to buy people's affection with money." The words hit like a physical blow. The room went completely silent. "Kevin," Dad said quietly, "that was out of line." But the damage was done. In that moment, Kevin had said what I'd always suspected they all thought. That my financial support was compensation for some fundamental lack. Some reason I wasn't as naturally lovable as he was. I stood up slowly, grabbed my purse, and headed for the door. "Emma, wait," Mom called after me. I turned back one more time. "You know what, Kevin? You're right. I was buying your affection. But at least I was honest about the transaction. You all have been taking my money while convincing yourselves it was family love." I was almost to the door when Dad's voice stopped me cold. "Maybe that's because you're not really family anyway." I froze. "What did you say?" The room was dead silent. Mom had gone completely pale. Even Kevin looked shocked. "Dad," Jake's voice from the kitchen doorway, where he'd apparently been listening. "Don't." But something in Dad's expression had changed. Something hard and cold and final. "You want honesty, Emma? Here's honesty. You've never fit in this family because you don't belong in this family. You're adopted. The world tilted sideways. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what he'd just said. What? You heard me. We adopted you when you were 3 days old, and this conversation is exactly why we never told you. Mom was crying now, shaking her head. Tom, no, not like this. Why not like this? Dad's voice was cruel, cutting. She wants to know why she doesn't feel like family. Because she's not. Kevin is our son, our real son. You're just someone we felt sorry for. The cruelty of it, using my adoption as a weapon, revealing it in the worst possible moment, left me speechless. But it also explained everything. The favoritism toward Kevin. The way I'd always felt like an outsider. The reason they could accept my money while maintaining emotional distance. Kevin looked stricken. Dad, I didn't know. Of course you didn't know, Dad snapped. Because unlike Emma, you belong here. I found my voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. My whole life? 28 years of lying to you, Dad confirmed. 28 years of pretending you were the same as Kevin when everyone in this room knew the truth. Mom was sobbing now. Emma, sweetheart, we love you. Being adopted doesn't change. Love? I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. You used my adoption as a weapon. You threw it in my face during a fight about money. I looked around the room, at Mom crying, at Kevin staring at the floor, at Jake hovering in the doorway like he wanted to disappear. You know what's funny? I spent my entire life wondering why I wasn't enough. Why Kevin got unconditional love and I had to earn scraps of attention. Why you could accept my money but never really accept me. Emma, Mom started. No, I'm talking now. My voice was stronger, clearer. 28 years. You let me believe I was your daughter while treating me like a charity case you occasionally felt guilty about. Dad's face was hard, unrepentant. We gave you opportunities you never would have had otherwise. We raised you, educated you, supported you. Supported me? I almost laughed again. When? When did you support me? We put a roof over your head, food in your mouth, until I was 18. And then I've been putting money in your pockets ever since. The fight was leaving me, replaced by something cleaner and colder. Clarity. Do you know what this means? I said, looking directly at Dad. It means every dollar I gave this family, I gave to strangers. It means I've been trying to buy love from people who never saw me as their real daughter. That's not true, Mom said weakly. Isn't it? Because 5 minutes ago, Kevin accused me of buying affection, and you all nodded along like that made perfect sense. But now that I know I'm adopted, it makes even more sense, doesn't it? The adopted daughter who had to purchase her place at the table. I walked back toward the center of the room, and everyone seemed to shrink away from me. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to walk out that door, and I'm never coming back. And Kevin, you're going to learn to pay for your own food trucks, because your sister, your fake sister, is done funding your Peter Pan syndrome. Emma, please, Mom begged. We can work through this. Work through what? 28 years of lies? Using my adoption as ammunition in a fight? Watching you all nod along while Kevin told me I was buying affection. I headed for the door again, then stopped and turned back one more time. You know what the saddest part is? If you'd told me the truth from the beginning, if you'd treated me like I actually belonged here instead of like a charity case you were stuck with, I probably would have kept sending money forever. But you played the adoption card, like it was a trump card in an argument about boundaries. Dad's face was stone. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Tom, Mom gasped. But I was already walking toward the door. Don't worry, Dad. I'll make sure it doesn't. I drove straight to my apartment in a daze, my mind reeling with questions. If I was adopted, where did I come from? Who were my birth parents? Why had the Carters chosen closed adoption, keeping the truth from me for nearly 3 decades? But more than that, I was processing the financial implications of what had just happened. For 5 years, I'd been sending money to people who saw me as an outsider, an obligation, a convenient source of funding for their actual son's dreams. I called in sick to work the next day and spent hours on my laptop, researching Arizona adoption laws, looking up procedures for unsealing adoption records. It turned out that Arizona had relatively open policies. Adult adoptees could request their original birth certificates, and in some cases, contact information for birth parents who had consented to contact. I filled out the paperwork immediately. But while I waited for the state bureaucracy to process my request, something else nagged at me. Dad's business had been struggling, according to Jake. Kevin had been living at home, unemployed or underemployed, for years. My financial support hadn't just been helpful, it had been essential. I started doing some research of my own. It's amazing what you can find out about people when you know their full names, addresses, and have access to the internet. Property records, business filings, court documents. It's all public information if you know where to look. What I found made my stomach drop. Tom Carter's HVAC business was in serious financial trouble. Not just slow business, actual trouble. He owed back taxes, had unpaid liens on his equipment, and had been operating at a loss for over 2 years. The house I'd grown up in had been refinanced 3 times, with the most recent mortgage being taken out just 6 months ago. Kevin wasn't just unemployed. He'd been fired from his job at the gym for missing too many shifts. The steady work Mom had bragged about at dinner, it had ended 2 weeks before my visit. But here's the thing that really got me. The coffee shop Kevin had opened with my $25,000. It hadn't failed because he got bored. It had failed because the health department had shut it down for multiple violations, and Kevin was facing potential legal action from the landlord for breaking the lease. None of them had told me any of this. They'd let me believe Kevin was irresponsible and flighty, when actually he was facing serious legal and financial consequences that could affect the whole family. I kept digging. What I found over the next week of investigation was worse than I could have imagined. Kevin hadn't just been careless with money. He'd been using my name and social security number to open credit cards and take out loans. The food truck he'd wanted me to fund. He'd already secured financing for it by forging my signature on loan documents. My credit report, which I'd never bothered to check closely, showed 3 credit cards I'd never opened, 2 small personal loans, and a business line of credit. All in my name, all tied to Kevin's various ventures. I was looking at identity theft, fraud, potential criminal charges, but it got worse. I found email exchanges between Kevin and a loan officer where Kevin had explicitly represented himself as Emma Carter's business partner and claimed I was a silent investor in his food truck venture. He'd used my employment information, salary details, and even provided copies of my bank statements. Statements he must have gotten access to when he was staying at my apartment during a brief period when his electricity had been shut off. My brother, my adopted brother, had been systematically committing identity theft against me for months. I printed everything. Bank records, loan documents, credit reports, email chains. By the end of the week, I had a folder 3 inches thick of evidence that Kevin had been using my identity to fund his lifestyle while I was already sending him money directly. The total damage, nearly $85,000 in fraudulent debt attributed to me. I made an appointment with a lawyer. Sandra Martinez was a white-collar crime attorney with 20 years of experience in financial fraud cases. I'd found her through an online search, and her reviews suggested she was exactly what I needed. Tough, thorough, and not interested in family drama getting in the way of justice. "Ms. Carter," she said, reviewing the documents I'd brought, "this is a clear case of identity theft and fraud. Your brother has committed multiple felonies. What are my options? You can file a police report, dispute all the fraudulent accounts with the credit bureaus, and pursue both criminal and civil charges against your brother. Given the amount involved and the sophisticated nature of some of these schemes, he could be looking at serious prison time." My stomach clenched. Prison time. For Kevin. What if I just want the debt cleared and my credit restored? That's possible, but it still requires filing police reports and cooperating with investigations. You can't just make fraudulent debt disappear without involving law enforcement. She leaned back in her chair, studying me. "Ms. Carter, can I ask why you seem hesitant to pursue criminal charges? This person violated your trust in the worst possible way." I told her about the family situation, the adoption revelation, the years of financial support. "I see," she said when I finished. "And you're worried that prosecuting him will seem vindictive, like retaliation for your family fight." "Something like that. Ms. Carter, let me be clear about something. This isn't about family dynamics or hurt feelings. Your brother committed serious crimes that have damaged your credit, put you at financial risk, and could have long-term consequences for your financial future. The fact that you're related doesn't change the legal reality. She was right. I knew she was right. What's the first step? We file a police report. Today. Before going to the police, I decided to give the Carter family one chance to make this right. Maybe it was stupid. Maybe it was naive. But despite everything, I felt like I owed them that much. I called Jake and asked him to set up a family meeting. I told him it was important, that I'd discovered some things that needed to be discussed. Emma, I don't know if that's a good idea. Everyone's still pretty raw from last time. Jake, this isn't about hurt feelings. This is about Kevin committing identity theft against me. Silence on the other end of the line. Identity theft? I'll explain when I see you. But Jake, this is serious. Legal serious. If the family wants a chance to handle this privately, we need to talk now. He agreed to set up the meeting for that evening. I arrived at the Carter house at 7 p.m. with my folder of evidence and a new understanding of who these people really were. I wasn't the daughter coming home anymore. I was a victim of financial crimes, and they were the family of the perpetrator. Everyone was there: Mom, Dad, Jake, and Kevin. The atmosphere was cold, defensive. Emma, Mom started. I'm glad you came. Maybe we can... This isn't a reconciliation meeting, I interrupted. This is about Kevin committing multiple felonies using my identity. Kevin went pale. Dad's jaw tightened. What are you talking about? Dad demanded. But I could see the worry in his eyes. I opened my folder and started laying documents on the coffee table. Credit card statements, loan applications, bank records. I'm talking about Kevin using my name and social security number to open credit accounts, take out loans, and defraud lenders to the tune of $85,000. The room was dead silent except for the sound of papers rustling as I spread out the evidence. Kevin, I said, looking directly at him, did you or did you not forge my signature on these loan documents for your food truck? He was staring at the papers like they were on fire. Emma, I can explain. Did you or did you not use my employment information to qualify for credit cards that I never applied for? It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. It's called identity theft, and it's a federal crime. Mom had picked up one of the credit card statements, her face growing paler by the second. Kevin, what is this? Mom, I was going to pay it all back. I just needed some breathing room while I got the business going. Breathing room, I laughed bitterly. Kevin, you've been using my credit for over a year. You bought a motorcycle, paid for a vacation to Vegas, and funded 3 different business ventures, all in my name. Dad was looking through the loan documents, his construction background making him better at reading financial paperwork than I'd expected. Jesus Christ, Kevin, he muttered. You told them Emma was your business partner? I panicked, okay? The loan officer kept asking about collateral and guarantors, and I just said the first thing that came to mind. The first thing that came to mind was to impersonate me. I was trying to keep my voice level, professional, but anger was creeping in. Kevin, do you understand that every late payment you make affects my credit score? Every default shows up on my background checks? Jake had been quiet, but now he spoke up. Emma, how bad is it? Bad enough that I've already consulted with a lawyer. Bad enough that Kevin could be looking at years in federal prison. The word prison hit the room like a bomb. Mom started crying. Dad's face went from defensive to shocked. Prison? Mom whispered. Emma, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Identity theft, wire fraud, bank fraud. Kevin's committed multiple federal crimes. Kevin jumped up from his chair. Emma, come on, we're family. You can't send me to prison. Family? I stood up too, facing him across the coffee table covered in evidence of his crimes. Kevin, you found out I was adopted a week ago and immediately decided that meant I wasn't really your sister. Now that you're facing consequences for stealing my identity, suddenly we're family again? That's not, I didn't mean... You didn't mean what? That I'm not really family. Because that's exactly what Dad said when he threw my adoption in my face like it was a weapon. Dad stood up now, his face red. Emma, you're blowing this out of proportion. Kevin made some mistakes. Mistakes? I grabbed a handful of the documents. Dad, he forged my signature on legal documents. He used my social security number to commit fraud. He's been systematically stealing my identity for over a year. These aren't mistakes. They're crimes. But he's your brother, Mom said through her tears. No, he's not. The words came out colder than I'd intended. but they were true. According to Dad, I'm not even really part of this family. So Kevin's not my brother. He's just a criminal who's been using my identity to commit fraud. Kevin's face crumpled. Emma, please, I'll pay it all back. I'll make it right. With what money, Kevin? You don't have a job. You're living with your parents. You've never successfully completed a single business venture. How exactly are you going to pay back $85,000? I'll figure it out. No, you won't. Because you're 26 years old and you've never figured out anything in your life. Every problem you've ever had, someone else has solved for you. Dad stepped forward, his voice threatening. That's enough, Emma. Is it? Because I think we're just getting started. I pulled out another document, a business registration form. Did you all know that Kevin registered a corporation using my name? Carter and Associates LLC, with me listed as the primary owner and him as the managing partner. A corporation that owes money to suppliers, has unpaid tax obligations, and is facing lawsuits. The room was spinning with revelations, each document I pulled out making the situation worse. Kevin, Jake said quietly, tell me you didn't drag Emma into business debts without her knowledge. I was going to tell her. I was going to make her a real partner once the business took off. You were going to make me a partner in my own company? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Kevin, you used my name to register a business that I knew nothing about, took on debt in my name, and now I'm legally responsible for obligations I never agreed to. Mom was sobbing openly now. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Emma, Dad said, his voice suddenly tired. What do you want from us? I want Kevin to admit what he's done. I want you all to understand that this isn't some family squabble that we can sweep under the rug. And I want a plan for how this gets fixed. What kind of plan? Kevin agrees to cooperate with investigators. He provides documentation of all the accounts he opened illegally. He signs statements admitting to the fraud. And the family pays restitution for the damage to my credit and the legal costs I'm incurring. Restitution? Dad's voice was sharp again. You want us to pay you? Dad, your son committed crimes that have cost me thousands of dollars in legal fees and damaged my credit score. Yes, I want restitution. How much? My lawyer estimates between $15,000 and $20,000 in damages and legal costs. That's on top of the fraudulent debt being cleared. Dad laughed bitterly. Where the hell do you think we're going to get $20,000, Emma? If we had that kind of money lying around, Kevin wouldn't have needed to. He stopped himself, but the damage was done. Wouldn't have needed to steal from me? I finished. Dad, are you actually justifying identity theft because your family is broke? That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. You think Kevin's crimes are understandable because you needed the money. I started gathering up the documents, stuffing them back into the folder. You know what? I gave you a chance to handle this privately, as a family, but clearly this family doesn't understand the difference between financial desperation and criminal behavior. Emma, wait, Mom pleaded. We can work this out. No, we can't. Because none of you think Kevin actually did anything wrong. You think he just made some mistakes that his rich sister should cover up to protect the family. I headed toward the door, then turned back one more time. For the record, Kevin, the lawyer says that the fact that your family actually makes the charges worse, not better. It's called aggravated identity theft, when you victimize someone you have a relationship with. Kevin looked like he was going to be sick. Emma, Dad called after me. If you go to the police, don't expect this family to ever forgive you. I stopped at the door and looked back at him. Dad, you used my adoption as a weapon in an argument. Kevin stole my identity to fund his lifestyle. This family stopped being worth forgiving a long time ago. The Phoenix Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit was located in a nondescript office building downtown. Detective Maria Hernandez was a 15-year veteran who'd seen every kind of family financial drama imaginable. Ms. Carter, she said, reviewing my documentation, this is one of the more comprehensive cases of familial identity theft I've seen. Your brother was quite systematic about it. We went through each fraudulent account, each forged document, each instance where Kevin had used my information. The detective took notes, asked clarifying questions, and occasionally shook her head at the boldness of Kevin's schemes. The business registration is particularly problematic, she explained. By creating a corporation with you as the owner without your knowledge, He's potentially made you liable for business debts, tax obligations, and even potential lawsuits from creditors. Can that be undone? It can, but it requires going through the courts to prove you had no knowledge of or involvement in the business. That takes time and money. More time, more money. More complications Kevin had created for my life. What happens next? We'll issue a warrant for your brother's arrest. Given the amount involved and the complexity of the fraud, he'll likely be charged with multiple felonies: identity theft, wire fraud, possibly racketeering if we can prove he was running an ongoing scheme. Racketeering. Kevin could be charged under the same laws used to prosecute organized crime. Detective, can I ask you something? Is it normal for family members to react the way mine have, acting like the victim is the problem for reporting the crime? She leaned back in her chair, a knowing look on her face. Ms. Carter, in my experience, families often circle the wagons around the perpetrator, especially when money's involved. They'll minimize the crime, blame the victim for being too harsh, and try to handle it privately to avoid embarrassment. So I'm not crazy for thinking their reaction is wrong? You're not crazy, but you are probably going to find that pursuing justice against a family member is lonelier than you expect. She was right about that. Kevin was arrested at his job 3 days later. Well, his new job, apparently, he'd found work at a car dealership after being fired from the gym. The arrest made the local news because the amount involved qualified it as a major financial crime. I found out about it when Jake called me, his voice tight with anger. Emma, they arrested Kevin at work, in front of his boss, his coworkers, everyone. They handcuffed him and everything. I know. You know, that's all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Jake? That I'm sorry Kevin faced consequences for committing multiple felonies? I want you to say that you understand you just destroyed your brother's life. Kevin destroyed his own life when he decided to steal my identity. I just filed a police report. He's sitting in jail right now, Emma. Bail is set at $50,000. I felt a brief moment of sympathy. Brief, but real. The image of Kevin in jail was hard to process. Jake, I didn't want it to come to this. I gave the family a chance to handle it privately. By demanding $20,000 in restitution, money we don't have. Money to cover the damage Kevin caused by committing crimes against me. He's your brother. No, he's not. The words exploded out of me. Remember? Dad made that very clear. I'm adopted. Kevin is their real son, and I'm just the outsider who was supposed to be grateful for being taken in. Jake was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. Emma, Dad was angry when he said that. He didn't mean it, didn't he? Because it explains everything, Jake. Why Kevin always got unconditional love while I had to earn approval. Why they could accept my money for years, but never really accept me. Why Dad thought he could use my adoption as a weapon in an argument. That's not, we never saw you as different. Then why didn't anyone tell me I was adopted? Why did I have to find out during a fight, with it being used to hurt me? Jake couldn't answer that. Look, I continued. I'm sorry Kevin's in jail. I really am. But he committed serious crimes against me, and actions have consequences. Mom's devastated, Emma. She hasn't stopped crying since the arrest. I'm sure she is. But where was all this emotion when Kevin was stealing my identity? Where was the devastation when Dad threw my adoption in my face? We're family, Emma. Families forgive each other. Some things are unforgivable, Jake. And some families aren't worth being part of. While Kevin sat in jail awaiting trial and the Carter family dealt with the fallout of his arrest, I received a call that changed everything. Ms. Carter, this is Janet Williams from Arizona Family Services. You requested information about your adoption. My heart started racing. Yes, I did. I have some information for you, and I also have a message from your birth mother. She's been hoping you would reach out for years. Birth mother. The words felt surreal. She wants to meet me. Very much. If you're comfortable with it, she'd like to give you a call. I gave permission, and within an hour, my phone rang. Emma? The voice was nervous, excited, emotional. This is Rebecca Williams. I'm your birth mother. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I was talking to the woman who'd given birth to me, who'd given me up for adoption 28 years ago. Hi, I managed. Oh, sweetie, I can't believe this day is finally here. I've thought about you every single day since you were born. We talked for 2 hours. Rebecca told me about being 17 and pregnant, about the pressure she'd felt to give me up for adoption, about choosing the Carter family because they'd seemed stable and loving. They promised me updates, she said, pictures, letters, information about how you were doing. I was supposed to get yearly reports until you turned 18. What happened to those? After the first year, they stopped responding to requests from the adoption agency. They'd gotten what they wanted, a baby. And they didn't want any contact with your birth family. Another lie. Another deception. Rebecca, can I ask why you placed me for adoption? She was quiet for a moment. My parents thought it was best. I was young, unmarried, and they convinced me that you deserved better than what I could provide. But Emma, not a day has gone by that I haven't wondered if I made the right choice. Do I have siblings? You have a half-sister, Amy. She's 24. I told her about you years ago, and she's been hoping to meet you someday. A sister. A real sister. Who'd grown up knowing about me and hoping to meet me. Would you like to meet in person? Rebecca asked. I understand if this is overwhelming, but I'd love to see the woman my baby became. We met at a coffee shop in Tempe, neutral territory that felt safe for both of us. I arrived early and sat by the window, watching every woman who walked in and wondering if she was Rebecca. When she arrived, I knew instantly. She looked like me, or rather, I looked like her. Same eyes, same nose, same stubborn chin. She spotted me immediately too, her face lighting up with recognition and joy. Emma, she breathed, walking toward my table with tears in her eyes. Look at you, you're so beautiful. We hugged, and it felt right, natural, like something I'd been missing without knowing it. Over coffee, Rebecca told me about her life. She'd married young to a man named David Williams, and they'd had Amy 3 years after my birth. She was a nurse now, working at Phoenix Children's Hospital. David was a teacher. They lived in a modest house in Glendale, and had always hoped I might find them someday. Tell me about your life, she said. The adoption agency couldn't give me much information, but I know you graduated from college and work in technology. I told her about my career, my education, my life in Tempe. But I also told her about the Carter family, about years of feeling like an outsider, about the financial exploitation and the way my adoption had been weaponized against me. Rebecca's face grew sad and then angry as I described my childhood and young adult years. Emma, that's not why I chose them. They seemed like such a loving family. They had 2 sons already, and they said they specifically wanted a daughter to complete their family. They wanted a daughter who would be grateful, I corrected. Someone who would always feel like she had to earn her place. I'm so sorry, Rebecca said, tears streaming down her face. If I'd known, if I'd had any idea they would treat you that way. It's not your fault, Rebecca. You made the best decision you could with the information you had. We talked for 4 hours. Rebecca showed me pictures of Amy, of her family, of the life I might have had. She told me about my birth father, a boy named Michael who'd been scared but supportive, who'd wanted to marry her and raise me together. What happened to him? Michael's a firefighter in Tucson now, married with 3 kids. But Emma, when he found out you were looking for us, he was over the moon. He's always wondered about you too. I had a birth father who'd wanted me, who'd been willing to take responsibility at 17 and raise his child. Would you like to meet Amy? Rebecca asked as our coffee shop conversation wound down. She's been so excited since I told her you called. The real family meeting, Amy was like meeting a version of myself who'd grown up loved and secure. She was confident, funny, and immediately treated me like the big sister she'd always known she had. I used to tell people I had a sister, she said, as we walked through the mall where we'd decided to meet. My friends thought I was making it up because I couldn't produce you, but I always knew you were out there somewhere. Did you ever resent me for being given up while you got to stay? Amy stopped walking and looked at me seriously. Emma, I've never resented you. I've been angry at the Carter family for not letting you know about us. And I've been sad that you grew up feeling unwanted. But I've never been anything but excited about having a sister. We spent the weekend together, Amy showing me around Glendale, introducing me to her friends, treating me like family in a way that felt effortless and natural. Rebecca and David, who insisted I call him David, not stepdad, welcomed me into their home like I'd always belonged there. The contrast with the Carter family was stark, where the Carters had made me feel like an outsider who needed to earn her place. The Williams family treated me like a missing piece that had finally come home. Emma, David said over dinner that first night. Rebecca has talked about you every day since you were born. When Amy was little, she used to set an extra place at the table for her big sister who was living somewhere else. I did, Amy laughed. Mom would let me because she said you were always part of our family, even if you weren't living with us. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Unconditional acceptance, genuine interest in my life, no hidden agendas or financial expectations. Can I ask you something? I said to Rebecca. If you'd kept me, how would things have been different? Different how? I mean, would I have grown up feeling like I had to be perfect? Like I had to earn love? Rebecca looked confused. Emma, honey, you would have grown up knowing you were wanted and loved, just for existing. That's what children deserve. Just for existing. Not for achieving, not for providing financial support, not for being useful. Just for existing. Kevin's case moved through the legal system faster than I'd expected. His court-appointed lawyer advised him to take a plea deal rather than risk going to trial with such overwhelming evidence against him. The plea hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in October. I wasn't required to attend, but I wanted to see Kevin take responsibility for what he'd done. The courtroom was small, sterile, with fluorescent lighting that made everyone look pale. Kevin sat at the defendant's table in an ill-fitting suit, looking younger than his 26 years. Mom and Dad were in the gallery, along with Jake. They avoided eye contact with me. When the judge asked Kevin how he pled to the charges of identity theft, wire fraud, and filing false documents, his voice was barely audible. Guilty, Your Honor. The judge asked if he understood the consequences of his plea, whether anyone had pressured him into accepting the deal, whether he was pleading guilty because he actually was guilty. Yes, Your Honor, I did the things they said I did. It was the first time I'd heard Kevin take real responsibility for anything in his entire life. His sentence was 18 months in federal prison, followed by 2 years of supervised probation and an order to pay full restitution for the fraudulent debts he'd incurred in my name. After the hearing, Mom approached me in the hallway outside the courtroom. Are you happy now? She asked, her voice filled with bitterness. Your brother is going to prison. He's not my brother, I said quietly, and I'm not happy. I'm relieved that the legal system worked and that Kevin is finally facing consequences for his actions. He made mistakes, Emma. He didn't deserve to have his life destroyed. Mom, he stole $85,000 using my identity. He created businesses in my name without my knowledge. He committed multiple felonies. Those aren't mistakes. They're crimes. Dad appeared beside her, his face hard. You could have handled this privately. I tried to handle it privately. You all acted like Kevin was the victim, and I was being unreasonable for wanting him to stop committing crimes against me. We raised you, Dad said. We gave you everything. You gave me a childhood where I never felt good enough, an adolescence where I was ignored unless I was useful, and an adulthood where my primary value was as a source of money. Then, when I asked for basic respect, you used my adoption as a weapon against me. That was who you really are, I interrupted. All of you. And Kevin's criminal behavior is just the logical extension of a family that taught him he was entitled to whatever he wanted, regardless of who got hurt. I walked away from them for the last time. In the months that followed Kevin's sentencing, my life underwent a transformation I hadn't expected. With the financial fraud resolved and my credit restored, I was finally free to make decisions based on my own priorities, instead of my family's expectations. I bought a house, a modest 3-bedroom place in Chandler with a backyard and a 2-car garage. For the first time in my adult life, I was building something for myself instead of funding someone else's dreams. Rebecca and Amy helped me move in, along with David and some of their friends. It was the kind of family support I'd never experienced with the Carters. People showing up just because they cared, with no expectations or ulterior motives. This is beautiful, Emma, Rebecca said as we stood in my new living room, boxes stacked everywhere but sunlight streaming through the windows. I'm so proud of you, proud of me, for buying a house, for standing up for myself, for building a life. Not for what I could provide for others, but for what I'd achieve for myself. My career flourished too. Without the constant stress of family financial crises, I was able to focus on work in a way I never had before. I was promoted to lead engineer on a major artificial intelligence project. Exactly the kind of work I dreamed of doing when I was that 12-year-old winning science fairs that nobody celebrated. I started dating again, too. Mark was a teacher I met through David, Rebecca's husband. He taught high school chemistry and had the kind of steady, genuine personality that I'd never been attracted to before, because it seemed boring compared to dramatic family crises. "You seem so calm," he said after we'd been dating for a few months. "So centered. It's refreshing. Calm, centered." These weren't words anyone had ever used to describe me before. "I feel like I'm finally living my own life instead of trying to fix everyone else's," I told him. Rebecca and I talked every few days, making up for lost time. She told me stories about my infancy, about the difficult decision to place me for adoption, about the years of wondering if I was happy and healthy. "Did you ever regret it?" I asked her one afternoon as we sat in my backyard, Amy playing with my neighbor's dog. "Regret placing you for adoption? No. I was 17, Emma. I couldn't have provided for you the way you deserved. But I regret choosing the Carter family. I regret not pushing harder for an open adoption. I regret all the years we missed together." "I don't," I said, and I meant it. If things had been different, I might never have developed the independence and strength I needed to break free from them. I might have spent my whole life trying to earn love from people who weren't capable of giving it. Amy looked up from playing with the dog. "Plus, if things had been different, you might not be the badass big sister who bought her own house and sent her criminal fake brother to prison." We all laughed at that. I ran into Jake at a grocery store in Scottsdale, about 6 months after Kevin's sentencing. I was buying ingredients for a dinner I was hosting for Rebecca's family, something I'd never done during my years of funding the Carter family, because I'd been too stressed about money to enjoy cooking. "Emma," Jake said, appearing next to me in the produce section. "How are you?" He looked tired, older. The stress of the family situation had clearly taken its toll. "I'm doing well, Jake. How are you?" "Okay, getting by." He hesitated, then asked, "How's Kevin doing? In prison, I mean." "I don't know. I haven't had any contact with him." "Right, of course." Another hesitation. "Emma, I know this is probably pointless, but Mom and Dad are really struggling, financially, I mean. Dad's business never recovered, and with Kevin gone—" "Jake, stop. I'm not asking for money," he said quickly. They're my parents, you know, and I can't help them the way you used to." "The way I used to?" I almost laughed. "Jake, the way I used to help was by funding Kevin's lifestyle, while everyone pretended it was normal family support. That wasn't helping. That was enabling dysfunction." "Maybe, but they're still family." "They're your family," I corrected. "They made it very clear that I was never really part of the family. I was just the adopted daughter who was supposed to be grateful for being taken in." Jake looked uncomfortable. "Dad didn't mean that." "Yes, he did. And you know what? He was right. I was never really part of your family. I was an outsider trying to buy my way in, and everyone let me because it was convenient." "That's not true, Emma." "Isn't it? When's the last time anyone in your family asked about my life, without it being connected to what I could do for Kevin? When's the last time anyone celebrated my achievements or supported my dreams?" He couldn't answer. "I have a real family now, Jake. People who love me unconditionally, who are proud of my accomplishments, who support me when I need help. I've learned what healthy family relationships look like, and what I had with the Carters wasn't it." "So you're just done? Forever?" "I'm done trying to earn love from people who see me as useful rather than valuable. I'm done setting myself on fire to keep other people warm. And I'm done feeling guilty about it." Jake nodded slowly. "I understand. I think I always understood, even when it was happening. I just didn't want to see it." "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because it wasn't affecting me. Because Kevin's problems were being solved, and Mom and Dad weren't asking me for money. Because it was easier to let you handle everything than to deal with the family dysfunction." At least he was being honest. "For what it's worth, Emma, I'm sorry for all of it. You deserved better from all of us." "Thank you for saying that, Jake. It means something." We said goodbye in the parking lot, and I drove home to my house, to my life, to the family dinner I was hosting, for people who loved me just for being me. Today marks exactly 1 year since Dad threw my adoption in my face during that awful birthday dinner. As I sit here recording this story, I'm in a completely different place, literally and figuratively. I'm in my home office, in the house I bought with my own money for my own future. Rebecca and Amy are coming over later for Sunday dinner, something we do almost every week now. Mark will be here too. He's become a regular part of our family gatherings, and Rebecca already treats him like a son-in-law. My career is thriving. I'm leading a team of 12 engineers on cutting-edge AI projects, making more money than I ever did when I was funding the Carter family's lifestyle. And actually enjoying the work because I'm not constantly stressed about family financial crises. Kevin was released from federal prison 3 months ago. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he's living in a halfway house, working at a fast food restaurant, and struggling to adjust to life with real consequences for his actions. I feel sorry for him, but I don't feel responsible for him. That's progress. The Carter family lost their house 6 months ago. Dad's business went under completely, and they're renting a small apartment in a less expensive part of town. Mom took a job as a substitute teacher to help make ends meet. Jake tries to help when he can, but a paramedic's salary only goes so far. Do I feel guilty? Sometimes. There are moments when I remember good times with the family that raised me, moments when I wonder if I could have handled things differently. But then I remember sitting at that restaurant table, watching Mom's face twist with resentment as she criticized my success. I remember Dad using my adoption as a weapon when he was angry. I remember years of feeling like I had to buy my place at the family table while Kevin got unconditional love just for existing. And I remember the relief I felt when I finally walked away. The truth is, I didn't abandon my family. I escaped from people who were using me. There's a difference, even if it took me 28 years to understand it. Some of you watching this might be in similar situations. Maybe you're the family member who always gets asked for money. Maybe you're funding someone else's lifestyle while neglecting your own dreams. Maybe you're working overtime to pay for other people's mistakes while they treat your sacrifice like an entitlement. If that's you, I want you to know something. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You are not required to fund other people's poor choices. And you are not responsible for managing other people's emotions about your boundaries. Family love should be unconditional, but family support doesn't have to be. Real family celebrates your success instead of resenting it. Real family appreciates your help instead of expecting it. Real family loves you for who you are, not what you can provide. I found my real family when I was 28 years old, and it turns out they'd been missing me as much as I'd been missing them. But even if I'd never found Rebecca and Amy and David, walking away from the Carter family would still have been the right choice. Because I'd have found something even more important: myself. Your worth is not determined by how much you can do for other people. Your value is not measured by your bank account or your willingness to sacrifice your own happiness for someone else's comfort. You matter, your dreams matter, your future matters. And if the people in your life can't see that, maybe it's time to find people who can. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about family, boundaries, and finding the courage to put yourself first. Share this with someone who might need to hear that they're worth more than what they can provide for others. And if you're dealing with a similar situation, remember, you're not alone, you're not selfish for wanting better, and you deserve a family that loves you for exactly who you are. Take care of yourselves out there. Until next time.